Today I want to discuss a few things with you. Today UK is starting a trial for the health workers with hydroxychloroquine. So it seems as if that it is reasonable to start a trial with hydroxychloroquine. So I have given many talks on this. Simply because of this, hydroxychloroquine's history being used for immune modulating purposes with rheumatoid arthritis and systemic lupus erythematosus, especially in the anticardiolipin syndrome, is so well known that there can't be any worry about its safety in the West, because the West has used hydroxychloroquine extensively for immunomodulating purposes. Of course, in Asia and Africa, we have used chloroquine extensively for malaria. So this talk that hydroxychloroquine is dangerous and its effects are not known is not true. So this bashing of hydroxychloroquine all the time had more than science some reasons. I am Dr. Lalith Mendis. I am from Sri Lanka. My last substantive post was as head of pharmacology of a state medical faculty. I am published on the PubMed on aspirin and few other subjects like that, because they were my research interests. And last few years I have been on the research for what the digital screen pixels actually do in the brain with the dopamine serotonin balance. But today we are on the topic of COVID-19, what you need to know. So it is a good thing that UK is doing a trial with the health workers regarding HCQ, and UK is buying loads of hydroxychloroquine for whatever reason, and there are other trials on with hydroxychloroquine in UK. One trial called Recovery, one trial called COP trial. So that's the right way to go. Then the University of Minnesota trial results are due, and if it's a properly designed trial and the results say hydroxychloroquine has no effect on COVID infection, that's fine. We accept truly scientific results. But the issue was clouded because the New England Journal of Medicine reported the veterans study where very seriously ill American veterans on a cruise ship, Navy ship were treated, and there was a high death rate because they were already hypoxic and advanced in disease. And that was quoted in New England Journal of Medicine as a factor against hydroxychloroquine. Secondly, they did a trial with remdesivir, and very quickly, halfway through the trial, trial was dropped, saying it is fantastic. Now, remdesivir has a history of being tried for Ebola and other viruses, and it failed every time. And there was an earlier study in China that said remdesivir does not work for COV2 infection. But with Dr. Fauci's interest in it, remdesivir was hastily tried in a badly designed trial in Columbia University in a Presbyterian hospital, and it was quickly pronounced as the drug. It is intravenous, it is very, very costly, and then many professors of pharmacology and pharmacoepidemiology, including Professor Stephen Evans of London School of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene, promptly responded and said it's a very badly designed trial, and this should never have appeared on an academic journal like a New England Journal of Medicine. It should have appeared only in the Gilead website, the drug company. To add to that, thirdly, there was another trial reported in NEJM, again where the hypoxic patients were treated with hydroxychloroquine. They were admitted to the emergency unit, and the hydroxychloroquine did not prove effective. Of course, it won't prove effective in advanced stages. As I have explained before, hydroxychloroquine best acts by preventing entry of virus, supporting zinc transfer into the cell. That has been proved now, and zinc itself works against the virus. So hydroxychloroquine prevents the virus attaching to the cell surface at the ACE2 receptor and prevents the virus getting from endophagocytosis. When the virus gets into the cell, it prevents the virus multiplying inside the lysosome by increasing the pH inside the lysosome. There are other actions of hydroxychloroquine, but this is what is relevant. The point I am bringing up is when remdesivir was so quickly considered a good drug and hydroxychloroquine is reported as a bad drug, both based on bad science, then you begin to doubt the integrity of an academic journal. Then you begin to think there are factors other than science at work. 1/3 of diabetes, COVID deaths in UK were because of type 2 diabetes. So type 2 diabetes who are obese need to take special precaution, such as vitamin D intake and omega-3 fatty acid intake. I have described why those two are important. Anyone, anywhere at this time, it is a good thing to take vitamin D extra intake because it is proven to be effective against severity of COVID infection. Then some have suggested metformin, the simple type 2 diabetes drug, as effective to reduce the H2 expression of fat cells in diabetes obese people. So that's a consideration. Now my talk is not a prescription. You must not take drugs on what I'm talking. You must go to your clinician and check about all this. But that metformin may be effective is a ray of hope. Then they tried the Moderna vaccine and reported very quickly as being very effective. But Anna Durbin, of a vaccine researcher in Johns Hopkins, have rightly criticized the way Moderna vaccine has been quickly put up or advertised as effective. Immediately Moderna stock value goes up. So one wonders whether this is a scientific effort at vaccine or an economic effort at getting your stock market value going up. So you can read about that, and she describes how the trial reporting is so inadequate to decide whether it is truly scientifically effective, including that they have not given how long the antibodies lasted. In Turkey, they have treated with hydroxychloroquine, and Dr. Sema Turan, speaking on behalf of the Turkish government, is affirming that it stopped the death rate or brought the death rate down significantly. Then there was a good report in a study done in California that SARS-CoV-1 antibodies of patients whose blood was collected 2 years ago, that all CoV-1 antibodies were effective to neutralize CoV-2, the COVID, which means some of the antibodies formed for former coronaviruses may be still producing immunity for CoV-2. We have said before that BCG vaccine has produced immunity in countries where the BCG vaccine is given. Then I want to consider something with you today. The thing that is on in the world, that so much of genetic modulation, genetic seeds, genetically modified food will affect our genome, human genome. There is a real infringement of the human genome. So vaccines that have nucleotide particles as adjuvants is going to affect our immune system. And if our immune system is not functioning well, then cancer cells that get released become cancerous somewhere, because it is our immune system that is the watchdog of cancer cells. So when there's a consistent effort at bringing down our immunity with so many different flu shots, and in the flu shots there are immune provoking particles and adjuvants that will keep cytokines always high in a child's body or in an adult's body, which means when you face COVID infection, you go into a cytokine storm. I have described this. The specific proresolver molecules that are formed in this immune cascade and which begin with omega-3 needed. These SPMs are low in kids and adults who have undergone immune activation in the wrong direction. Our innate immunity is dependent on T cells, and when innate immunity has been stimulated, we are ready for the viral or bacterial invasion. But when constantly adjuvants and flu shots are given, we have shifted to adaptive immunity, and there's a cytokine activity that goes on which consumes immune molecules that are very necessary for a coordinated, synchronized immune reaction or response when we have pathogens coming in. The COVID problem was whenever immunity was disturbed in all those countries in that entire belt, death rates were very high. So one has to think of the role of what do vaccines really do vis-a-vis our innate immunity. It is already converting to adaptive immunity with so the cytokine cascade active and harmful. This is a thing that has to be considered. So therefore the situation arises, let me draw it like this. This is an ancient allegory. When life was to begin again, there was a raven moving around and there was a dove moving around. The raven moved around among the corpses and among the destructions, feeding on death, feeding on disease, feeding on destruction, invading lives. Whereas the dove kind had this green olive branch for life, for prosperity and peace. So one wonders how health is used in nations when there's such a rush for vaccines without waiting for the Oxford vaccine, which is bound to be of good quality. And the battle that was there to put down hydroxychloroquine and put up remdesivir, which has proven again and again not effective. And now again, many renowned, reputed professors of pharmacology and pharmacoepidemiology are saying that remdesivir trial was not designed well to make reliable academic comments. So I have done this topic once before, and I'm Dr. Lalith Mendis, and you can get my clips from sending a WhatsApp if you want to discuss, and I'll be also happy to, and I can learn something from the question you ask. Please send a WhatsApp to +94 77 49 59 214. So I also drew this allegory of a time when there's a sheep kind and a goat kind, and it said, I came and I found people starving. So those who cause starving, the goat kind, and those who look after the starving, the sheep kind. So every head of state of any nation has to be wise to this, that there is a battle on for policies to come through that is invading the nation through health. Now, there were attempts before to invade the nation through debt. Take economic resources out of the control of a sovereign nation. This has been happening. Getting sovereign nations into a debt trap. This has been happening. But now, genetically modified seeds are promoted as the way to alleviate poverty. Is that really true? Genetically modified seeds have to be always purchased from the company that produced the seed. And the nations are losing their biodiversity, the nations are losing their genomes and heredity in the genome. They are losing their gene value and the gene pool by agreeing to genetically modulated seeds. And what is the bait? These genetically modulated seeds will produce quickly, not in 4 months but in 3 months, and they will produce a bigger harvest, seed for seed or seeds for acre, and that they in storage they will not be attacked by insects. Now, at what cost? Whole lot of agrochemicals have to be used, and just the way the pharmaceutical companies use doctors to get drugs prescribed, too expensive drugs, unnecessary drugs, the same agrochemical companies are using agriculture officers to get agrochemicals prescribed for every acre of land. And agrochemicals cause kidney disease a whole lot in our country, and also produces cancerous changes in cells. Add to that when the immune system is dabbled with by all kinds of drugs, bad lifestyles, and then vitamin D deficiency, omega-3 deficiency, which happens if you don't take animal fat and you don't have fish fat and you're on statins, you are low on omega-3. So in this COVID infection, it is good to take omega-3 and vitamin D supplements. So when the immune system is put down, cancer cells escape and cancers increase. So you need to rethink that, are there people working to make people sick? You can't avoid that question. Why was hydroxychloroquine so long put down, even not being started on a trial basis? I again say we have to wait for proper controlled clinical trials, and trials that are reported with bias will sully the whole issue. So these are some concerns. So I'm on this theme of the sheep kind that look after the hungry, and the goat kind that increase hunger. Then the sheep kind that look after the thirsty, the goat kind that increases the pollutions in the world. Different kind of pollution. So there's a big drive to stop the meat industry, but grow meat through artificial means, through genetically modified cells. You have genetically modified made cells which look like meat. Now how will that, all this genetic modulation, how will that affect the human genome, which is the thing that we need to protect? So then researchers ask rightly, is there an effort at eugenics, population meddling, engineering, making populations weak and lose out? This is the thing. So are there a group who's planning who should live, who shouldn't live? The survival of the fittest and the struggle for existence taken to an extreme practical end. Is this really happening? From neoliberal socio-economic political philosophy, are we moving to a neo-Nazi one where few people really decide on draconian measures to reduce the Earth's population? And then the sheep kind looking after strangers, aliens, that is those who lose their home country, different methods by which populations are shifted out, young people are shifted out with the lure of better education, greener pastures, more job opportunities and so on. They lose their homes, and you are creating a world of strangers, the next generation not caring for elders or their parents, and a complete disconnection, the family value of family business, or family value of parents doing their best for children, and children in return doing for their parents, which is a family value. I believe it's a God-designed value. So the family culture invaded by the predatory global culture, and which is aggressively promoted and marketed by the fake media and by the digital screen that all the time bombards home, alienating child from parent. So that is one of my research efforts for the last 7 years. I have many clips on. Please please do a Google, and you will find Dr. Lalith Mendis plus digital, many scientific clips addressing the issue with many innovative diagrams. Yes. So the sheep kind looking after the strangers, aliens, those who are lost home territory, and the goat kind who's all the time making people lose home territory, people lose family. That's also engineered. Then it is said, when I came, I found those who are naked, and the sheep kind clothing the naked, and the goat kind creating nakedness, creating obscenity, creating pedophilia, the flesh trade, the human trafficking, the endless, nauseous, tragic trade. This has come to a halt at present. What will it be when the world begins again? Who will have the ascendancy, sheep kind or goat kind? You in your nation, you have to decide. You in your family, you have to decide. Sheep kind, covering the nakedness, getting back to family values of family, no premarital sex, no extramarital sex, lifelong fidelity to one partner, raising your generations, you see. Because we have read it before, there is going to be a generation that will be so rude and reckless, who curse their father and diminish their mother. 7 features are given. And the last feature is that they will behave like ravens, that is, eat anything anywhere and fight for it. That's the expression, the raven kind versus the dove kind. Putting it into another allegory, the sheep kind and the goat kind. Then the 5th feature in that list is those who make people sick, the goat kind, with all kinds of scientific strategies, and the sheep kind who look after people and hopefully have better recovery methods. And lastly, I was in prison, and the sheep kind, you looked after me, you liberated me, and the goat kind who put people into prison, nations into prison. What is a prison? A death prison, a sickness prison, limited opportunities. And this word Nephilim, you may have heard or not, it comes from an old incident. It means predators, those who fall on others. And rob what it belongs to others. Nephilim is a kind of behavior, preying on others, hunting on others. So you really have to see that professions are meant to be benefactors, to look after our beneficiaries. So doctor and his scientific knowledge should earn for him, but it should serve the beneficiary, the patient, well. Now, if we make profit out of sickness, virus, vaccines, drugs, how much profit is okay profit? So you have to admit that something has terribly gone wrong. So in a post-COVID world, will we do things different? Or do we get back to the same rapacity? Will the big powers say time is limited, resources are limited, let's go for it at each other's throat? So in every nation, the citizen must look after his family and his nation. This is my consideration for today. Thank you for listening. We'll meet again on a midday broadcast sometime. Hydroxychloroquine needs to be tried. Now a proper trial needs to be designed, and that proper trial will prove the truth. So we have no prejudice on it, we have no bias on it. But when hydroxychloroquine is completely put down, then we know there's some problem. So the first trial, first thing that was reported as a trial, since the Chinese and South Korea used hydroxychloroquine extensively and found it useful, when it came to the US scenario, they reported the VA study, the veterans on a ship that got ill, very ill, and the very ill were treated with hydroxychloroquine, and there was a high death rate. That was reported in the New England Journal of Medicine as hydroxychloroquine having failed. Then the same New England Journal of Medicine reports the remdesivir trial, as remdesivir is a very successful drug. Of course, Dr. Fauci pressed it, and the NIH funded it. Then many professors of pharmacology and professors of epidemiology, such as Professor Stephen Evans, said that this was a badly designed trial, and they said, why should it appear on a journal, academic journal like NEJM? It should have appeared on the Gilead website. So they didn't agree with the trial result, which promoted remdesivir. Then a third trial was reported from Columbia University and Presbyterian Hospital, where hydroxychloroquine seemed to have failed, but when you look at the trial detail, there are a lot of statistical panjandrums, and really ill patients, more ill patients were allocated to the group that got hydroxychloroquine. And if results were equal, death rates were equal, having allocated very ill patients to the hydroxychloroquine group, then actually hydroxychloroquine has been effective to reduce some death rate. So this thing has been going on. Then 1/3 of UK deaths are in COVID is with diabetes type 2. So we have the concern that diabetes people should be protected even after lockdown release. With vitamin D and omega-3, it's sensible to give both of them. And some people may see a role for metformin. We have to wait and see. I have done this before, that when new modern flu shots are being given, it has a lot of adjuvants. They cause trained immunity to transfer to adaptive immunity. So when you have trained immunity, T cells are ready and waiting to respond to the invader, the pathogen. But when you have flu shots with a lot of adjuvants, children or adults will have the adaptive immunity functioning all the time. Then there's a cytokine storm. Then there'll be lesser amount of pro-resolver molecules available, and if you on top of it have a omega-3 deficiency because of statins obstructing omega-3 synthesis, and then you are not taking animal fat or fish fat, your omega-3 low, immune molecules low. So in COVID time you must take omega-3 supplements and vitamin D supplements. All this results with a ravaged immune system, with a ravaged or low depressed immune system, which was the reason across the temperate zone for COVID infections to be so severe. Check it out, that's how it was. Whichever country that took a lot of flu shots had severe COVID infection and death coming, higher death rate. So you have to make sure that your immune system is at a proper level, good level, only trained immunity, not moving into adaptive immunity. How do you move into adaptive immunity? By adjuvants in vaccines and other bad lifestyles, sugar eating and all that, bringing down the immune level. What happens then is cancer cells begin to get released, and when cancer cells are formed, they are not checked by the immune system, you become cancer prone also. Now I shift to vaccines. Moderna has advertised their vaccine and released some results, but Anna Durbin of Johns Hopkins University says, and I agree with her, that those vaccine results are not properly reported. You can't get a scientific opinion on it. They don't say those molecules, whether they are just binding molecules or neutralizing molecules, the gamma globes, and they also don't say how long the duration of gamma globes would be. So immediately when Moderna put out these pre-results, their stock values went up. So you wonder whether this is a scientific exercise or an economic exercise to get your stock values up. Then in Turkey, they report, Dr. Sema Turan reporting to the government how they have used hydroxychloroquine extensively and had good results putting down the death rate. In India also, Indian Medical Council has mandated the use of hydroxychloroquine. Now these are not clinical trials, these are observations alongside the French trial in the French National Institute of Infection by Professor Gautret and Professor Raoult. They have treated over 3,000 people and reporting that they had a cure rate of 92% with hydroxychloroquine. Now I understand, I'm Dr. Lalith Mendis. My last post was as a head of Department of Pharmacology in a state medical faculty in Sri Lanka. I understand we need proper clinical trials. My point is this: before proper clinical trials, putting down one drug and showcasing a drug like remdesivir, which is very expensive, which has to be given intravenous and which has failed in so many other occasions earlier, you say there are some reasons working besides science when such things happen. Then in Korea they have reported that PCR may show positive because of different viral particles in a person even after clinical recovery. So after clinical recovery, getting a positive PCR is not a sign that the disease is active. Then there are other reports that are observing the gamma glob pattern and saying that you will not get the disease again. Then there's another study from Jolly University, California. They found that SARS-CoV-1 antibodies of blood collected 2 years ago, that blood was, those antibodies were effective against the COVID infection, CoV-2, which means many people may be having immunity because of previous coronavirus infection, might have had cross immunity for COVID infection, which is good news. So the thing that has come out strongly is keep your immunity strong. All children, young people or elderly people who died of the the COVID infection have had bad immune systems. Some good news, 22 schools across Europe have started school back again, countries, and COVID rate has not gone up, but in Sweden the news is not good. Again the COVID infection rate has gone up, and they have become the country with the largest death rate. If you do per capita, having a low population, death rate in Sweden is not good. Now I want to get to a little reminiscing. I want to suggest this from an old story, because this health was so used to damage. There seems to be schemes afoot using health issues to damage the health of nations. This issue has come up. Bad drugs, bad vaccines. Now we are all for good vaccines, so we are asking, if Oxford is making a proper vaccine to quality, why is it that there's such a commercial rush and competition? Oxford Genome Institute, Dr. Sarah Gilbert is making a real good vaccine. Then why is there such a competition and a rush to make commercial vaccines available? And why would Dr. Fauci say so many vaccines will be needed? What for? To give everybody all the vaccines? And whereas at the Congress hearing, he said we cannot guarantee vaccines will produce immunity. Then why wait for a vaccine without giving the most likely effective drug, hydroxychloroquine? Assuredly, it needs to be proved in controlled clinical trials, no doubt about that. So I'm getting onto this discussion from this old story that there was a time when raven moved upon the earth among carrion and among disease and destruction. And there was a dove kind which moved on the earth with a green olive branch. So two kinds of people. Similar, another allegory, that there was a time when an examination was done, and it was said there was a sheep kind and a goat kind. And the sheep kind, they fed the hungry. So who caused hunger? The goat kind. And how do they cause hunger? It's not merely inequitable wealth distribution which causes hunger. It's also trade strategies and trade policies and even scientific policies. So when there's, instead of growing grain, you grow cash crops, and farmers get nothing much for grain, and they're encouraged to grow cash crops, you have a food shortage. And now there's a great drive to get genetically modified seeds into nations, and the nation's biodiversity, therefore ability to resist pestilence, is going off, and the genetic pool in nations is being eroded by techniques of genetically modified seed, which you had to get again and again from that company. And the bait is, with genetically modified seeds, you'll get a larger harvest, it is said. Two, it is said, you will get a quicker harvest, not 4 months, 3 months, and then that in storage, insects will not attack. And the cost of it is that you have to use agrochemicals all the time. So the pharmaceutical industry gives doctors perks so that all the time unnecessary drugs, too expensive drugs get prescribed. Now in the agrochemical scene also, agriculture officers are given perks when they prescribe agrochemicals. What a thing, isn't it? So hunger is created by the goat kind, but the sheep kind alleviate hunger. Then it is said, I was thirsty and you gave me water to drink. So pollution is being created in so many different ways by the goat kind, and potable water might be the next war, someone said, and we are very grateful. In Sri Lanka we have a lot of potable water. Probably the highest rate of potable water per hectare. Maybe we may be the country. Then thirdly, it is said, I was a stranger and sheep kind is told, you looked after me. So how are strangers created? Families are into alienation, while when on the digital screen, parents lose control of the child, and a generation comes who curses their father and diminishes their mother, who are very rude with their words and reckless, very sharp cutting words. Thirdly, they don't think anything is unclean or no good, anything goes, anything is consumable, sex in any form. Fourthly, they set their eyes so high and they are not satisfied. Thirdly, fifthly, they say nothing is enough. And then it is said, as if a raven has taken sight out of them. They can't see what is good from what is bad. So the family is invaded. When family is invaded, the nation is invaded. Children, young people leave home and go for greener pastures, better education, hoping for PR in another country, parents spending through their nose for a student visa, and they don't find gainful employment. They can't look after their parents, so family breakup, engineered family breakup. If war is engineered, people lose their home territory, illegal migrants in the millions. So people are made to displace and made to have no bearings, no roads. Who's doing this? There must be some scheme, a goat kind, who are really planning to make nations vulnerable. You have to consider this. In the COVID infection, and not only the way the virus came about, and the response was so late and facts were hidden, but also the way the simple methods and remedies available are put down and exotic remedies are being touted or promoted. Who is doing this? So when children become strangers and people lose their own country and people lose access to the resources of their own country, who is doing it? That episode says there's a goat kind, there's a sheep kind. Fourthly, you made me naked, but I was naked, you came and looked after me. That's a sheep kind. Then who makes naked? The sex industry, the pedophilia, the flesh trade, the human trafficking, the pornography, the goat kind. So there's really a battle on to destroy the family and the nation. Battle between the goat kind and the sheep kind who protect all these good things. Then the invasion of the genetic pool and the destruction of the human genome by different means. What is our greatest treasure? Human genome, isn't it? So I find God designs in many of these things, but I do look at it scientifically before that. Then I realize there is a design, and the sheep kind try to preserve all of mankind and family values and parental generation handing over to the children generation, and they in turn looking after parents. This is what the family culture is. The global culture, the global trend seems to be each man for himself and do it your way. Narcissism is promoted on the digital screen with all the digital games, and I'm published on it. Please do a Google on Dr. Lalith Mendis plus digital. You'll get many scientific clips. If you want some of my clips, please phone in on, or not phone in, send a WhatsApp to +94 77 49 59 214. We will send you enough of these clips to keep you reasonably educated and informed on the truth. So a naked thing. Then the fifth one is, I was sick, sheep kind, you watched over me. And who causes sickness? Engineered high profit business. This virus was with a molecular tool, was made with a molecular tool, says Professor Luc Montagino, the one who described HIV. That's his expert opinion. I can send the references. So who makes sick? The goat kind. Finally, I was in prison. You looked after me. So what goes into prison? Who puts in prison? The national resources, the kids' future, young people's future, every nation's possibility is taken over by some schemers the world over. You need to see this, you need to understand this. COVID only brought the issues into focus, that we all will not be deceived, we'll be with eyes open. So thank you for listening.